This episode of The General's Gentleman is sponsored by Ashes of the Singularity. Take control of epic battles in a massive scale RTS where you control thousands of units. With up to 14 players per game, it's the biggest RTS to date.
Welcome to The General's Gentleman.
Base defenses have been a part of RTS since its inception and are often regarded as being a simple yet necessary component of RTS games. In reality, designing base defenses should be done with great caution because the flow and pacing will suffer if turtling is too effective. Regardless of the implementation, there are a few considerations to ensure base defenses are a balanced and fun component of RTS. So why should an RTS game even bother with base defenses in the first place? Like a lot of other mechanics, they aren't always necessary and shouldn't just be tacked on for the sake of it. But if done properly, base defenses act as a strategic tool which reward players for their foresight and predictions of enemy movements, since they fortify locations of the map in exchange for mobility, resources, or time. The most fundamental method to balance out base defenses is for mobility to be incentivized through game mechanics such as resource acquisition and tied together with meticulous map design. Secondly, it's important for base defenses to have vulnerabilities and weaknesses which can be exploited. Ideally, base defenses would have just as much interaction and counterplay as any other unit type. Various RTS handle this in different ways. Command & Conquer 0 Hour has base defenses that are weak versus certain unit types, such as Gatling cannons being weak versus tanks, while Patriots are weak versus infantry. Alternatively, fire bases are strong against all unit types, but have a minimum attack range. The point defense and Supreme Commander take a different approach. They're strong versus all ground units, but mobile artillery is readily available from the start and is a strong counter. In Company of Heroes, machine gun teams and anti-tank guns can only fire in a limited arc, which allows them to be flanked. At first glance, StarCraft 2 appears to be an exception to this rule, since its defenses have no obvious weaknesses and siege units are inaccessible. Instead, StarCraft's defenses are weak for their size and attack range compared to units, so they scale poorly against large armies that can have more damage packed into a smaller area. All of these unique approaches work because it allows for players to remain active and aggressive, since they always have the ability to punish the defensive structures. It also means base defenses need to be supported and can't just be placed down and neglected. These implementations are especially brilliant because each is thematic to the overall focus of their game, whereas flanking point defenses in Supreme Commander would feel out of place for a game that's focused on production and allocation of units. So now that we know how to make base defenses balanced, how do we make them fun? Depending on the focus of the game, base defenses should have quirks and interaction to bring them to life and to give them their own unique personality. 0 Hour does this fantastically with micro techniques such as retargeting the EMP Patriot during its volley to disable multiple vehicles, or spinning up the Gatling cannon before an engagement to increase its rate of fire. Even better is when these traits create room for both players to micro and outplay each other. The Patriots in 0 Hour don't track moving infantry, which allows the player to identify which infantry is being targeted and keep it moving to avoid damage. Meanwhile, the Patriot can retarget another infantryman or can manually attack round to intercept the moving target. In Company of Heroes, heavy machine gun teams can be smoked off, which prevents it from firing, but it also gives the HMG team time to reposition. Other than just micro techniques, base defenses can have more strategic approaches to make them enjoyable. Red Alert 3 accomplishes this by allowing them to be customized or improved. For example, a Tesla coil has its damage increased if charged by a Tesla trooper. The multi-gunner turret can be garrisoned by different infantry to customize the weapon, and nearby Spectrum towers can link up to each other. These are elegant implementations because they create ways to improve the efficiency of base defenses while requiring foresight and investment of resources. These characteristics are also all visually intuitive for the types of weapons they yield. It would be jarring to charge up a machine gun like a Tesla coil, but it does make sense for a machine gun to load incendiary rounds. Even outside of gameplay, base defenses should be designed in a way that makes them satisfying to use. If it's appropriate, base defenses should try to find exclusive weapon types and effects to make them stand out. There's nothing cool about just machine guns and rocket launchers. The most memorable base defenses in RTS have been the Tesla Coil and Obelisk of Light, because their attack type, sound effects, and kill animations are something completely unique to Command & Conquer and to Red Alert. In later Command & Conquer games, the Obelisk of Light was no longer special because of how many other units fired lasers with similar visuals and audio. So far I've been talking about base defense as just static turrets, but that's not always the best approach to defending territory, and many RTS have handled it more creatively. Company of Heroes has several features to make attacking and defending territory more strategic and complex, in which barbed wire and sandbags can be used to deny or create cover, HMG teams can be set up to suppress incoming troops in a limited arc, and mines can be used to slow an advance. Whatever the method of defense is, it's important that each have an opportunity cost in resources or time to make them a deliberate decision which requires preparation, and just like static turrets, utility-based defenses should have counters such as barbed wire cutters and minesweepers. In summary, base defenses can come in many different forms, but they all serve to fortify locations of the map at the expense of mobility, resources, or time. They should serve a strategic purpose by requiring preparation and prediction of enemy movements. Base defenses need to have vulnerabilities which can be exploited or have accessible counters to ensure they don't stop the game from flowing. Additional quirks, micro techniques, and unique artistic qualities should be used to create base defenses as an enjoyable feature and not just a generic RTS trope.
Please subscribe to the General's Gentleman. If you enjoy our content, you can support us at patreon.com/General's Gentleman.